Chapter 1. Sunday light came through the Denver apartment thin and honest, bright enough to show every crumb on the kitchen counter, and soft enough to make the mountains look close. Cheyenne stood barefoot on the cool tile with one hand on the blender lid. She had been awake for 20 minutes and already felt the morning calling her body forward, up the stairs, down the block, into motion. Cynthia sat at the table with her water glass untouched and her wrist turned toward her watch. She had the same cheekbones as Cheyenne, the same straight-backed posture, the same stubborn crease between her brows when she was concentrating. At 37, they no longer looked like copies. They looked like two answers to the same question. "Heart rate variability is up," Cynthia said. "That means recovery day, not leg day." Cheyenne turned the blender off. "I woke up ready to move," she said. "My legs said so before I looked at a screen." Cynthia smiled in the way she smiled when she was not arguing yet. "Your legs did not send me a push notification," she said. "I am going with the data." Cheyenne poured her smoothie into a tall glass and sat across from her. For a moment they were simply together, the way they had been together all their lives. 2 mugs, 1 kitchen, an argument soft enough to fit inside affection. Cheyenne felt Cynthia's small worry before Cynthia spoke again, a tightness under Cheyenne's own ribs that did not belong to her. It eased when Cynthia tapped the watch face and saw numbers she trusted. "Recovery day," Cheyenne said. "I can respect that." "We can still walk the building stairs after coffee," Cynthia said. "That counts." "It counts," Cheyenne said. They smiled at the same time. When they were good, they were still very good. The Amazon box arrived before lunch, brown cardboard with a clean label and the satisfying weight of something new inside. Both sisters loved that weight. They set the package on the living room rug and opened it together, kneeling across from each other like they were young enough to fight over which one got to peel the plastic first. Inside was a small home hub with a ring of light and 2 slim bands meant to talk to it. Cynthia pulled the Quick Start guide free and unfolded it along the creases. "I already registered the warranty," she said. "There is a firmware window tonight. If we miss it, we wait 2 weeks. "A tragedy for the ages," Cheyenne said. "Laugh all you want. You like the new toy, too." "I love the new toy," Cheyenne said and reached for the hub. She plugged it into the outlet behind the couch. The ring breathed once, pale blue, then held steady. The little pulse of light pleased her more than she wanted to admit. It made the apartment feel listened to, though she did not say that out loud. "It feels right there," she said instead. Cynthia was already typing into the manufacturer's app with her thumb. "What does that mean, it feels right?" she asked. "It means the couch corner gets the signal and the kitchen does not buzz when we are trying to talk," Cheyenne said. "I can try it and find out." Cynthia read a line from the guide, aloud about placement and ventilation. Cheyenne synced her band by holding it near the hub until the light turned green. Cynthia synced hers on the second try after she confirmed a privacy checkbox the app required, then went back and actually read the permissions. "You know they already have the data," Cheyenne said. "Yes," Cynthia said, "but they can ask politely." Cheyenne laughed because she loved her for that. They showed each other the screens and compared the tiny dashboards as if the apartment had just acquired a third opinion. Then they moved on, the way they usually moved on when the same goal had 2 roads and both roads worked. The television was on because Cynthia had turned it on after the stairs. Cheyenne heard the anchor voice before she saw the screen. She came through the living room with her phone in one hand and a mug of tea she had already forgotten to drink in the other. Cynthia stood near the coffee table with her arms folded loosely, attention fixed on the news. The anchor was speaking about a hospital staffing report, vaccination rates in county clinics, and the governor's response. Cynthia nodded once at a line about expanded hours. Cheyenne's attention dropped to her phone. "Are you still watching that?" Cheyenne asked. It was not contempt in her voice. It was the old joke between them, worn soft from use. "Just background," Cynthia said. "I want to hear if they clarify the clinic hours." Cheyenne sat on the arm of the couch and scrolled. Her feed was not like the feed on TV. She had built it over years, choosing who to follow and who to block, the way a person built a bookshelf if they cared what they let into their mind. A woman she trusted had posted a thread about starseed memory and the difference between longing and recall. Someone else had linked a short talk on the Galactic Federation of Light and the clones they were outing. A third post was only a sentence about the shift, plain enough that Cheyenne's chest loosened when she read it. She believed the shift was real. She believed it the way she believed her own pulse. No one had given her permission for that certainty. No one had to. Cynthia glanced at Cheyenne's phone and did not ask what she was reading. Cheyenne did not offer. They had grown up in the same house and now shared the same apartment, long enough to let each other's habits pass like weather through the same window. Some weather still changed the pressure in the room. The text came from Mrs. Ruiz down the hall. Mrs. Ruiz was 71, with a cough she called nothing and a daughter in Phoenix who worried aloud in the family group chat. Cynthia saw the message first because Mrs. Ruiz still used the building email list for anything official. Before Cheyenne finished reading, Cynthia had opened the patient portal. She trained hospital staff on that portal 5 days a week. And her tone shifted into the one she used when kindness needed a schedule. "I can book her a telehealth visit," Cynthia said. "They have an opening at 4. "I will take soup," Cheyenne said, "and I will sit with her for 20 minutes. "She might be contagious," Cynthia said. "Telehealth exists so we do not spread it." "She might be lonely," Cheyenne said. "Telehealth does not hold a hand." Cynthia's mouth tightened, not in anger. It was the expression she wore when two good things could not both happen first. She sent Mrs. Ruiz a link with clear steps and a photo of which button to press. Cheyenne heated broth and added ginger she crushed with the flat of a knife. In 4B, Mrs. Ruiz coughed into a tissue and apologized as if illness were a failure of manners. Cheyenne sat beside her anyway. She did not make a performance of bravery. She simply put the mug into Mrs. Ruiz's hands and waited while the older woman drank with both palms wrapped around the warmth. When Cheyenne came back, Cynthia was rinsing the blender. The apartment smelled like ginger over dry Denver air. "We helped," Cynthia said. "We did," Cheyenne said. She meant it in a wider shape than Cynthia did, and she loved Cynthia enough not to say so. Cynthia's phone chimed with a reminder she had set herself. Cheyenne knew the tone. "Flu clinic tomorrow," Cynthia said. "I am already booked. You should come with me." "I am not doing that shot," Cheyenne said. Cynthia set her phone face down on the counter. The careful click of it sounded like the first small gavel of the day. "Che," she said. "I know." "Do you?" "I know what you are going to say." "Then let me say it better than the version in your head," Cynthia said. "The clinic line I use for work said everyone in our county should update this year. Mrs. Ruiz is sick. The hospitals are understaffed. This is not theoretical." "I did my research," Cheyenne said. "I made a choice." "From the wrong places." "From places you do not trust." "That is not the same thing." Cheyenne looked at her sister across the kitchen. The hub's blue ring glowed behind Cynthia near the couch, calm and obedient. Everything in Cynthia's world seemed to become safer once it had a source, a guideline, an office, a stamped recommendation. Cheyenne could understand that without being able to live inside it. "My body said no before any article did," Cheyenne said. Cynthia's face changed, not anger first, fear. Cheyenne felt it prick against her ribs, the old twin sense arriving without permission. "Your body can be wrong," Cynthia said quietly. "So can a system. Do not turn this into a speech." Cheyenne regretted the speech she had not yet given. She could feel it waiting in her throat, full of words like sovereignty and programming and consent, words that were true in her life and useless at this counter. "I am not going," she said. Cynthia folded her arms, then unfolded them. "Kyle is coming at 6. Can we not do this at full volume until after he leaves?" Cheyenne exhaled. The argument had already taken up too much of the day. "After," she said. "We can pick it up Monday if it still needs picking up." Cynthia's shoulders dropped a fraction. "Deal," she said. Kyle arrived with wine, a salad in a bag, and the easy confidence of a man who thought he understood the shape of the evening before he walked into it. He kissed Cynthia hello and nodded to Cheyenne like they were all family. He worked in hospital administration, in the same network Cynthia trained for, which Cynthia said meant he saw how systems kept people alive when individuals forgot to cooperate. Cheyenne thought that was exactly the kind of sentence Cynthia could say with admiration. They ate pasta at the small table by the window. The mountains were a dark line beyond the glass. Kyle asked about the new hub, and Cynthia lit up in the way she lit up when a new toy was asked about by someone prepared to appreciate the specifications. She explained the bands, the app, the firmware window, the recovery metrics. Cheyenne listened and let the ordinary pleasure of the room be real because it was real. Cynthia was happy. Kyle was trying. The pasta was good. Then Kyle asked Cheyenne what she had been reading on her phone earlier. "Threads," Cheyenne said. "People I follow." "About the shift," Cynthia said, not unkind. "She is very into the shift." Kyle smiled with his fork paused over his plate. "My mom sends me that stuff," he said. "Sheen, alien craft hiding in clouds, the works. I tell her the weather app is the only prophecy I need." Cheyenne smiled because the table expected it. Kyle went on, still warm enough to believe he was being friendly. "I get curiosity," he said. "I do. The world is weird. Everyone wants a pattern, but you have smart women in this apartment. You do not have to go digging in the internet's basement to find one." "I am not looking for a pattern," Cheyenne said. "Okay," Kyle said. He lifted a hand, peaceable and dismissive at once. "Fair. But the vaccine thing, though. Cynthia says you will not go to the clinic." Cynthia looked down at her plate. Cheyenne set her fork beside the bowl. "That is between me and my body," Cheyenne said. "I respect autonomy," Kyle said. "I do. But in hospital work, you see the cost when everyone treats every public health decision like a private mood." "It is not a mood." "Maybe not, but it puts worry on Cynthia. That is all I am saying." That was not all he was saying. All three of them knew it, though Kyle might have known it the least. "I am capable of making a decision without being irresponsible," Cheyenne said. "Sure," Kyle said. "I just think there is a version of kindness where you do not make your twin carry extra fear, because the loudest voices online made certainty feel like courage." Cynthia laughed. It was small, almost automatic, a surrender to the pressure of keeping dinner easy. The sound hurt more than Kyle's words. "I am not," Cheyenne started. Cynthia touched Kyle's wrist. "She heard you," Cynthia said to him. "She heard you." Cheyenne looked at her sister. Cynthia did not look back long enough for the look to become a conversation. The subject moved because Cynthia moved it. Kyle told a story about a broken elevator at the hospital. Cynthia topped off wine glasses. Cheyenne stayed until the plates were cleared because leaving early would have made a second story out of the first. When Kyle kissed Cynthia goodbye at the door and his footsteps faded down the hall, The apartment felt larger and quieter than it should have. Cynthia busied herself with the sink. Cheyenne stood in the doorway between kitchen and living room. "You could have said he was wrong about me," Cheyenne said. Cynthia did not turn off the water. "He was trying to care in his language," she said. "He was trying to win in his language." Cynthia shut off the faucet and faced her. "He is my boyfriend. You are my sister. I am not choosing him over you. It felt like you chose peace over me." The words were simple. They hurt in both directions. Cynthia wiped her hands on a towel. "I did not want to fight at dinner," she said. "I thought that was kindness." "Kindness to whom?" Cheyenne asked. "To all of us, to the evening." Cheyenne searched Cynthia's face and found sincerity there, not malice. That was the trouble. Cynthia was kind in the shape she trusted. Lower the volume, keep the room intact, let the system hold. Cheyenne wanted the larger shape, the one where you softened toward your own blood even when a guest wanted the room on his side. She was not going to teach that in one night. "I would have softened for you," Cheyenne said. "I know you think you would." Cheyenne absorbed that. "That is worse than if you did not understand me." Cynthia's eyes shone, but she did not cry. "I understand that I am scared," she said. "I understand that you hear a sentence from a stranger online and trust it more than the people trying to keep you alive. That is not what is happening. Then explain it in a way that does not make me feel like I have already failed some test I did not know I was taking." Cheyenne had no quick answer. She did not want obedience from Cynthia. She wanted recognition. The difference mattered to her and seemed impossible to translate. The love between them was not in question. The gap was in what they thought love required when the table turned sharp. "We are okay," Cynthia said. "Are we?" Cheyenne asked. "We are," Cynthia said. "Tomorrow is Monday. We can talk then if you still need to." Cheyenne nodded once. She felt tired the way she always did after she stayed quiet for someone else's comfort, as if she were still holding the words Cynthia had not spoken in defense of her. Cynthia went to bed first. Cheyenne stayed on the couch with her phone and told herself 10 minutes, then sleep. The posts kept arriving, one after another, all circling the same pressure in her chest without naming it. The shift, the remembering, the sorting of worlds by frequency, by consent, by the private compass no authority could read for you. Cheyenne's skin prickled along her arms. From down the hall, Cynthia's bedroom door opened. Cynthia stood barefoot on the carpet in her sleep shirt, one hand on the doorframe. "I heard the TV," Cynthia said. Cheyenne looked at the black screen across the room. It had been off since dinner. "It is off," Cheyenne said. The hub ring behind the couch flashed white once, bright enough to paint the ceiling, then settled back to blue. No sound came with it. Cynthia rubbed her arms. "Power glitch," she said. "The building does that." Cheyenne looked down at her phone. The screen had gone black and lit again on the same thread, mid-sentence, as if she had not lost a second. The twin sense between them tightened. It was not painful. It was wrong in a quieter way, like a held breath that did not belong to either of them. "Do you feel that?" Cheyenne asked. "I feel tired," Cynthia said. "I am going back to sleep." They did not solve it. Cynthia crossed the room, kissed Cheyenne's cheek, and walked back down the hall. Cheyenne heard her door close. The hub glowed blue. The phone waited in her hand. For one fragile second, Cheyenne felt that the whole apartment was listening. Then the feeling passed, or pretended to. She set the phone face down on the couch arm and went to her room. Monday came thin and ordinary. Cheyenne woke before her alarm. Cynthia's door was still shut, and the apartment had the hush of a place waiting for someone to speak first. Cheyenne moved softly without deciding to. She left a note on the hub where Cynthia would see it when she synced her band. Morning walk, back for our talk. She took the stairs down and walked 2 blocks for coffee. The air was dry, the mountains clear. Denver looked itself awake block by block. Delivery trucks, dog walkers, someone scraping a chair across a balcony above her. Nothing had ended. Nothing had announced itself. When Cheyenne came back up at 9, Cynthia's room was empty and the bed was made. The note was gone. On the counter sat a travel mug with the clinic logo Cynthia used for work and a scrap of paper in Cynthia's tight script. Flu clinic, back this afternoon, tonight for real. Cheyenne stood there longer than the note required. She had expected Cynthia to come out of the bathroom in a rush, hair half dry, asking if Cheyenne had seen her badge. She had expected the ordinary collision of their weekday lives. Instead, there was the mug, the clean counter, the blue ring of the hub. She texted Cynthia. "Got your note. I am here when you are back." The message stayed pale. No delivered mark appeared. Cheyenne told herself the building's Wi-Fi was having one of its moods. The twin sense in her ribs said Cynthia was already at the flu clinic, bright lights and intake forms and the ordinary Monday line. It also said something else, something softer and farther away. Through the window, Denver still looked like Denver. The sound of it did not. The late morning sirens she was used to hearing from the avenue below were absent. In their place was a calm she could not name without sounding foolish. Cheyenne looked at the hub in the couch corner, its ring steady and blue, and wondered why she had bought something meant to keep people close when the apartment already felt like enough room for one life. She had missed her sister by an hour and a door. The wrongness from Sunday night had not gone away. It was waiting for morning. Chapter 2. Tuesday morning came through the windows the way Denver mornings did in early spring, thin and bright. Kyle was already at the small table with 2 mugs poured and the hub ring holding steady blue on the couch corner. Cynthia sat across from him and felt the apartment settle around the shape it had always had. 2 mugs, 2 bands, 2 names in the manufacturer's app. 2 made sense. Kyle was right there. "How did you sleep?" Kyle asked. "Fine," Cynthia said. The building was quiet. Her eyes moved toward the hall before she could stop them. It was the quick old glance of someone listening for another door, another pair of feet, another morning routine crossing hers. Then the moment smoothed. The second bedroom was Kyle's office. It had always been Kyle's office. His shoes sat by the desk, his spare monitor glowed in sleep mode, and her old guest linens were folded in a closet bin because they had never been needed for anyone else. Kyle lifted his band from the table edge. "I synced mine last night," he said. "Figured we would use this thing for the 2 of us when I am on night shift." "That is exactly what it is for," Cynthia said. Warmth moved through her chest when he smiled, and she let the warmth belong to him because that was the obvious answer. The quick start guide had shown 2 bands and 1 hub. The app had accepted Kyle's name. The diagram fit. Only her body did not settle as quickly as the screen did. Cheyenne woke before her alarm on Tuesday and lay still in a quiet apartment that had, as far as she could remember, always been hers alone. The twin sense in her ribs was already awake before she was. It felt familiar in the body and impossible in memory. There was no sister in her life story, no second toothbrush, no second closet, no name that belonged to the pressure under her sternum. She went to the kitchen without trying to name it. Her hand reached for 2 mugs before her mind arrived. She set the second mug back in the cupboard and stood there with the cabinet door open. The habit had moved faster than the life she remembered. "That was odd," she said into the empty kitchen. No answer came. The absence did not feel like silence. It felt like someone just outside the range of hearing. She made coffee and drank it standing at the counter. The hub ring on the couch corner held steady blue. Two slim bands sat beside it. She wore one. The other had synced green on Sunday and now waited beside the hub with no one assigned to it. The manufacturer's app offered a second user slot with a blank name field. Connect people, the packaging had said. Cheyenne looked at the empty field until her ribs tightened in answer. Across the same hour in the other timeline, Cynthia was naming Kyle in her app. Cheyenne did not know that. She only knew the empty slot felt less like an error than an invitation she did not understand yet. Cynthia ate toast at the small table while Kyle told her about a staffing email that had ruined his manager's morning. The television was on low. An anchor was speaking about the same county clinic hours Cynthia had wanted clarified before the weekend. The numbers matched what she had heard in line at the flu clinic on Monday. The world sounded normal, busy, and a little sharp at the edges. When the segment ended, Kyle muted the set. "Building gym before dinner?" he asked. "Give me 20 minutes, Cynthia said. "I want to log the band data while I remember." She opened the manufacturer's app and watched sleep score, recovery, and morning steps fill their charts. The interface offered a household view. Kyle's name was already there. Cynthia tapped through the screens with the easy pleasure she always felt when a system knew what she meant before she finished typing. Then her thumb hovered over the message app. For half a second, she expected another thread above Kyle's. Not a work thread, not her mother, someone first, someone automatic. There was nothing there. The absence had the smooth blankness of a deleted file with no record in the trash. She frowned, then dismissed it. She had been up early. She had taken a shot yesterday. Bodies made strange little protests when schedules changed. Kyle came out of his office with his gym bag. "If the elevator is still down, we take the stairs," he said. "I am not missing leg day because of maintenance." "Go," Cynthia said. "I will finish here." When the door closed behind him, the apartment held its breath for one beat. Cynthia rinsed his mug and, without meaning to, reached for a second invisible cup that was not in the sink. Her hand closed on air. Cheyenne took the stairs to the lobby and held the door for a man carrying a box of oranges. He thanked her with a smile that reached his eyes. On the sidewalk, the air was still dry Denver air, but the traffic moved without the angry braid of sirens she was used to hearing on weekday errands. The city sounded rested. She walked to the corner store for milk she did not urgently need and listened to the ordinary things become gentler. A bus sighed at the curb instead of groaning. A dog barked once and stopped when its owner laughed. A woman at the crosswalk looked up from her phone and smiled as if eye contact were no longer a risk. Cheyenne checked her feed under the store awning. No one was trying to prove the shift had happened with panic graphics or emergency caps. The posts were quieter than that. People were saying the pressure had eased. People were saying the air felt different. People were saying they had slept like their bodies had finally been allowed to unclench. She believed them because the city in front of her agreed. At the register, the clerk asked how her morning was and meant it. Cheyenne carried the milk home cold against her palm and tried to remember the last time a stranger's kindness had surprised her. The answer would not come. Maybe kindness had always been this easy here. Maybe she was the one who had been slow to notice. The pressure in her ribs moved once on the walk home, sourceless and brief. Not habit. Habit faded when it was looked at. This looked back. Cynthia's phone buzzed with the building group chat while she wiped the counter. Mrs. Ruiz down the hall had posted a thank you for the telehealth link and the clear instructions. Cynthia smiled and typed, "You're welcome, glad it helped." She did not remember soup in a pot. She did not remember ginger on the air. She did not remember anyone carrying a mug to 4B and sitting beside Mrs. Ruiz while the older woman coughed into a tissue and apologized. The thread continued with a notice about elevator maintenance and a question about package theft. Three names Cynthia did not recognize replied with policy quotes. She had lived in this building for years. She was sure of it, yet the chat felt smaller than it used to. It was as if several regular voices had gone on a trip and everyone had agreed not to mention their rooms were empty. She scrolled back through the week. No missing names, no vanished pictures, no evidence at all. The absence was not evidence. She knew that. She worked around records every day. If a thing had no record, it had not happened in the system. Still, when the pulse in her chest answered the empty feeling, Cynthia set the phone face down. Cheyenne carried the milk upstairs and passed 4B without slowing. The door was only a door. No name rose in her mind. No remembered cough. No older woman with both palms around a mug. At the same moment, in the other timeline, Cynthia stepped onto the landing with a bag of recycling in one hand and read the elevator maintenance notice taped beside the doors. Cheyenne reached the top stair and stepped out into the corridor. Cynthia felt the pressure behind her sternum sharpen as if someone had come up behind her. She turned. Cheyenne felt a pulse at her shoulder sharp enough to stop her. She turned too, expecting a face, a hand, someone close enough to have entered her space. In Cynthia's timeline, the corridor held ordinary light, closed doors, and the recycling bag pulling at her fingers. In Cheyenne's timeline, the hallway was empty except for the milk sweating cold in her hand. Neither saw the other. The twin sense did not deal in visibility, it dealt in placement. Same instant, same floor, same building, two earths that no longer admitted they touched. Cynthia told herself it was the draft from the stairwell and went back inside. Cheyenne stood a moment longer in the empty hall. She waited for fear. What arrived instead was a quiet certainty that the world beneath her feet was right, and that someone she loved was not wrong for being absent from it. Cynthia was on the couch with Kyle's head against her shoulder when the evening news returned to clinic hours and vaccination rates. The graphics were crisp. The policy language was firm and familiar. Kyle murmured approval at a line about hospital coordination and fell asleep mid-sentence. Cynthia let the sound wash over her. She had updated her shot on Monday. She had eaten dinner. She had synced the band with the man who shared her home. The hub ring held blue on the couch corner, 2 lights for 2 lives that fit the diagram. Then the pressure behind her sternum pulsed once. Not pain, not warning, presence. Kyle was warm against her side. The feeling did not come from his breathing. It was too specific for that, too located, as if someone she loved had stepped into the room and waited for her to notice. Cynthia looked down the hall. Kyle's toothbrush stood in the cup beside hers. The far bedroom door stood open on his office light. Everything made sense except the part of her that would not stop listening. She told herself it was the flu shot. She laid her palm on Kyle's band to steady the moment. The pulse faded. It did not go away. Cheyenne sat on the couch where the hub had breathed blue on Sunday night and scrolled once through her feed before she put the phone face down. The apartment was dark except for the ring light and the city glow through the window. Denver looked like Denver. It sounded like a city that had remembered how to breathe. She synced her band for the night. The second band stayed beside the hub. The app still waited for a name. Cheyenne pressed her hand to the place under her ribs where the twin sense had kept its seat all day. It answered, immediate and stubborn, across a distance that was not measured in miles. In the other timeline, Cynthia was pressing her palm to Kyle's band and telling herself a story that almost fit. Cheyenne did not know the story. She knew only the thread in her own chest that had survived when memory had not. "Good night," she whispered to the presence without a name. Outside, late traffic passed without a siren. Life felt right. The apartment felt right. The earth beneath it felt like a body exhaling after a long sickness. Only the thread remained unanswered. It was not going to leave on its own. It was going to keep asking her to learn what love remembered when history did not. Chapter 3. Wednesday morning, Cheyenne woke without reaching for a second mug. That was the first thing she noticed. Not the light, not the quiet, the absence of the old mistake. She made coffee, stood at the kitchen window, and watched Denver moving below. The city still had delivery trucks, people crossing streets, bikes at corners, steam lifting from rooftop vents. It was not a painted paradise. It was a real city in a real morning. But the old pressure had gone out of it. No sirens braided through the avenue. No angry horn kept insisting that everyone else was in the wrong place. Clean light sat on the buildings, as if the air itself had been rinsed. The city had always looked like this. The thought arrived with the smooth certainty memory used now. Cheyenne let it pass without fighting it. She was learning that rewritten history could feel true and still leave a thread in the body that did not agree. By Thursday, the ships were over the Front Range. Silver hulls, still as moons, visible from her balcony in the clear afternoon. Her phone chimed with a local alert. 3 minutes on TV, facts only, no panic crawl. Cheyenne turned the set on and watched a woman at a plane desk explain what everyone could verify by walking outside. The vessels belonged to the Galactic Federation of Light. Representatives would answer questions at neighborhood centers. No curfew, no emergency order, no demand to stay indoors. Cheyenne had not always trusted news. In the life her memory now offered, she had trusted verified local reports when they matched the world she could touch. That felt different enough to make her pause with the remote in her hand. Then the lift in her chest pulled toward the neighborhood community center, and the question of what she had once believed became less important than the next true thing to do. The gym doors stood open. Inside, 3 Pleiadians moved between tables with no stage and no ceremony. They looked almost human until they did not. The difference was in the stillness, in the ease of their attention, in the way people near them lowered their voices without being told. A woman at the front table tapped a microphone once. "The shift already happened," she said. "Most of you remember a strange week. Broken texts, flickering lights, a pressure in the chest." Cheyenne's palm moved to her ribs before she could stop it. "That was the crossing," the woman said. "The old restraints are gone. You are not here to be managed. You are here to discover what is possible." A man near the back asked, "Restraints on what?" "On what humans were allowed to build, grow, heal, and know," she said. "On water, on soil, on your own bodies. We share what was hidden. You follow what excites you. That is how New Earth builds." No one cheered. That would have been too small a response. People looked at one another with the startled quiet of those who had been given back a room they had not known was locked. The tables were practical. That helped Cheyenne believe what her heart already recognized. At the first table, copper wire spiraled around wooden stakes above seed trays. Electroculture, the handout said. Field bias that helped roots take up water and minerals faster. Not magic, not metaphor. A Pleiadian wound a spiral and showed the amp reading on a pocket meter. At the next table, crystal nodes the size of soup cans sat beside growth charts from beds that had already outpaced last season's photos. Healing and growth crystals, the label read. They stabilized moisture and field coherence when placed and maintained correctly. You still watered. You still weeded. The crystal did not replace care. It helped care land. At the third table, glass jars held cloudy cultures labeled for soil repair and polymer breakdown. Bacteria that cleaned compacted ground. Bacteria that ate plastic and toxic residues when introduced in the right sequence. A woman in a garden apron said she had poured the soil culture on a dead lot Tuesday and scraped black plastic out of the root zone Thursday. There is always a reason better things happen, Cheyenne thought. The reasons were sitting on folding tables in plain jars. Phones came out. People asked questions in full sentences. No one signed a roster. No one was assigned a team. Cheyenne felt the specific lift that meant yes and walked to the electroculture table because her hands wanted to wind copper before her mind finished the list. Friday morning, the creek lot was already awake. 15 people had arrived within an hour with gloves, jugs, hand tools, and one borrowed truck. No one had called a meeting. No one seemed surprised that the right people had shown up. Cheyenne drove stakes and wound spirals along the first bed while a Pleiadian woman showed moisture numbers on a handheld screen. A crystal node went into the center. Soil culture from the community center went in with compost. The work had rhythm. Dig, set, water, listen. By Sunday, sprouts showed. By the next Friday, kale and beans held full leaf under spirals that hummed faintly when the meter passed. A neighbor laughed when her fingertips tingled at the waterline. The readout steadied. No one called it magic. They called it electroculture, crystals, bacteria, and human attention. They meant every word. Cheyenne followed the lift day to day. Creek bank when mud smell and clear water excited her. Home when rest did. The laundry room when a neighbor's embarrassment arrived before his apology, and she learned to ask herself, is this mine? 2 weeks in, the creek run went from dull to glass. Plastic shards along the bank went into a culture bin from the center and came out brittle and dark, ready to sift into harmless dust. Someone filmed a heron landing where runoff foam used to gather. The feed flagged it verified. Across Denver, the pattern repeated without becoming a program. A woman excited about local eggs called a farm 12 miles east, and a corner store said yes before lunch. A mechanic tired of the HVAC hum found roof access, and 3 neighbors followed with filters because quiet excited them too. The hum stopped. Cheyenne's allergies eased. A dead median on Colfax became a tree trench in 72 hours because 4 strangers arrived with saplings, mulch, electroculture stakes, and a pin map saved from the community center. No floor captains, no emergency committee, only people acting on the highest excitement they could honestly reach and taking it as far as it wanted to go. Healing came into the open in the 3rd week. A room at the community center that had held folding chairs now held mats, crystal stands, and a simple protocol on the wall. Ask first, stay present, do not perform for the feed. Cheyenne burned her thumb on a kettle, held it under cool water, and watched the heat leave faster than her training expected. No blister, no scar. The next day, a child split his lip on the playground door. His mother said yes. Cheyenne knelt beside him, held calm in her chest, and stayed until the bleeding stopped. The split closed clean before the walk home finished. Abilities were uneven, like every honest post said. Useful, not theatrical. Alive because people practiced them instead of showing them off. In the same week, the center opened a tool library beside the healing room. Ask first on one wall. Return what you borrow on the other. Cheyenne checked out a torque wrench because the lift said her building's roof unit wanted a human hand on it. The mechanic and 3 neighbors met her there without a group chat assignment. They had all felt the same pull after the same quiet afternoon. By dusk, the rooftop hum that had annoyed the building for years was gone. No one had filed a complaint. No one had waited for a service window. People had noticed, arrived, and fixed what wanted fixing. That was the part that kept humbling her. New Earth did not remove effort. It removed the false weight around effort. By the 5th week, the center hosted a flying demonstration in the parking lot after sundown. Not a spectacle for tourists. A lesson. Small craft with crystal drive fields rested on the asphalt. No fuel smell, no engine cough, no fenced-off authority around them. The instructor lifted 3 feet into the air, hovered, and set down. You do not need permission, she said. You need calm and practice. Teenagers and grandmothers formed the same line. They signed nothing. They signed excitement. Cheyenne did not fly that week. She watched and felt the yes arrive in her chest like a door opening. 2 weeks later, she lifted 6 inches in a practice ring behind the center and laughed so hard she dropped back to the ground. No one teased her. The instructor only said, again, but softer. By month 2, she crossed the creek corridor in a 2-seat craft with the same instructor beside her. Feel the field, the woman said. Do not force it. They cleared the power lines by 20 feet and landed on a strip that had been a weedy parking lot in March and was a flight ring in May. Crystal Drive. Human hands. Verified landing log posted for the next person whose excitement pointed skyward. Cheyenne still loved technology. That had not changed. The difference was that technology no longer asked to be her master before it agreed to help. Money changed more slowly. The corner store kept prices on the shelf for a month because old habits died in stages. Then the labels came down. A resource board went up beside the eggs. What was available? What was needed? What you could bring if you had extra? Cheyenne brought kale twice and took soap once. No one tracked her credit score. A woman who needed jars for culture brought eggs and left with 12 clean quarts. A Pleiadian at the center called it coordination without scarcity and said humans had shared that way in small bands for millennia when fear was not running the ledger. Cheyenne did not need the history lesson to prove it. She could see the relief on people's faces when they stopped calculating whether they deserved to need something. Government changed the same quiet way. The city council chamber still existed. The meetings did not matter like they used to. Neighborhood circles met in the community center gym and posted decisions on the verified local feed. Who would maintain the creek path? Who wanted to host the next flying practice? How to route clean water to the block that asked? Whether to convert an empty bank branch into a culture lab and flight clinic. Consent, not decree. Sovereignty spoken in plain language. Cheyenne attended one circle because the lift pulled her there. She spoke once about the plastic bin at the creek and left when her part was done. No one called her a citizen on a ledger. They called her present. 6 weeks in, Denver looked like a city that had stopped waiting for permission. Orchards in medians. Rooftop tomatoes with electroculture stakes along the parapets. Creek paths lit for evening walkers. Clinic waits short because calm and healing moved through rooms the way bacteria moved through soil, uneven and real. A nurse told Cheyenne her blood pressure had dropped into a range health posts, used to call unrealistic. Keep doing what you're doing, the nurse said. Cheyenne did. The verified feed showed beds planted, connectors replaced, flight rings marked, culture labs opening in other zip codes. True numbers, no panic graphics. Cheyenne read them the way she read weather. The twin sense did not fade as the residue habits did. It sharpened. One warm evening, she stood at her window and felt a jolt in her ribs, as if someone had stepped into a room behind her. She turned. The apartment held only her plants, the hub's blue ring, and the furniture of a life lived alone. She pressed her palm to her sternum. The present stayed specific, loved, and not locatable. I know you're there, she whispered. She felt foolish and certain at once. Somewhere on an earth she could not see, another body felt the same jolt at the same instant and reached for an explanation that would not hold. The thread answered with one pulse that felt like yes. By the 3rd month, the Front Range had the look people called garden country in the local feeds. Green in layers you could walk through. Air easy in the lungs. Small craft moved above the corridors on quiet fields. Human pilots mixed with Pleiadian mentors. Packages and people crossing town without burning the air. A mother Cheyenne knew from the center flew Produce to a clinic that had asked for greens on the resource board and landed on a pad that had not existed in any planning document 6 weeks earlier. Healing rooms sat beside tool libraries, beside flight rings, beside culture labs for soil and plastic. Children learned electroculture in the gym on Saturday and flight comm on Sunday because excitement did not respect weekday boxes. The community center had become the kind of place people had been kept too busy and too scared to build. Money was mostly memory. Government was mostly presence. Excitement was mostly the map. Pleiadian ships still hung above the city, not as spectacle, but as neighbors who had shared what humans had not been allowed to imagine and then stepped back when humans ran with it. Cheyenne synced her band. She checked the verified feed. The hub connected people who wanted to be found. The manufacturer's app still offered a second user slot with no name filled in. She checked it less now. The empty field had folded into the twin sense and into the way she stood in doorways as if making room for someone who did not live here in any memory she owned. On TV, a 3-minute segment showed another city running the same stack. Electroculture beds, crystal nodes, culture jars, healing rooms, flight rings, resource boards, circles instead of decrees. Cheyenne muted the set and looked out at streetlights coming on in a steady wave. Rain had passed an hour earlier. The pavement smelled clean. The world had outrun every list she could have made in March. The point was still the next true yes in her chest. Before bed, she pressed her hand to her ribs. The presence there was not a problem to solve tonight. It was a thread to follow. "Good night," she whispered to the name she did not have. Then she slept in a body that finally had room to keep up with the earth it lived on. Chapter 4. Wednesday morning, Cynthia woke to Kyle already at the small table with 2 mugs poured. The second mug habit had settled into serving him. It no longer pulled at anything else unless she was very tired or very quiet. She drank her coffee and watched the television on low while the anchor walked through hospital coordination numbers and a new municipal health platform rollout. The graphics were crisp. The language sounded firm and familiar. Denver had always felt busy this way, urgent and improving, and Cynthia had always trusted the news to tell her what mattered. The pressure in her chest pulsed once while Kyle buttered toast. She looked at him. He looked up and smiled. "What?" he asked. "Nothing," Cynthia said. "I think I am still catching up from Monday." "Shot fatigue." "Maybe." The explanation was available. She took it because available explanations were useful. By the end of the month, the city announced a smart health and infrastructure fair in the convention hall beside the light rail stop. Kyle had a staffing email to answer. Cynthia went because her employer had booked a demo booth and because the pressure in her chest had been steady all morning in a way that felt like anticipation, not warning. The hall doors opened on rows of screens, gleaming kiosks, and vendor stations with the clean smell of new plastic and chilled air. Nanite soil packs in sealed cartridges, vertical farm modules with genetically tuned greens, drone bays with electric rotors folded quiet, medtech suites behind privacy glass, a long line for blockchain identity enrollment with a biochip station at the end. A presenter on the main stage said the strange week in March had been a network transition seam. Most people in the audience nodded with relief. The phrase gave a technical name to broken texts, flickering lights, and the odd pressure so many people had felt in their chests. Cynthia did not think shift. She thought upgrade. The city was moving fast because the tools had finally caught up to the problems everyone had been watching on TV for years. Her company's booth showed a patient portal that now talked to municipal health AI and implant-ready clinic workflows. Cynthia walked managers through the screens the way she had always walked them, only faster, because the AI-driven backend finally matched the promise. A clinic director from Aurora asked about triage bots. A hospital network rep asked about nanite-assisted wound closure in outpatient settings. Cynthia answered from the script, then from the live demo when the script fell behind the product. She loved that. She loved the clean snap of a system becoming smarter than the paperwork built to describe it. At the Nanite Agriculture Pavilion, a technician sprayed a test plot with a missed the brochure called Soil Intelligence. Compacted ground loosened in timed footage on the screen. Plastic contamination counters dropped in another clip when paired nanites met polymer waste in a lined bin. Not magic, engineered systems performing optimally. Cynthia photographed the cartridge specs for a client who managed community clinic gardens and sent them before she reached the next aisle. Kyle met her at the vertical farm display at lunch. He held 2 coffees and looked impressed in the way he looked when a gadget made a manager's life simpler. "They say harvest cycles are down to days on some strains," he said. "Imagine what that does to supply chain risk." "Imagine what it does to dinner," Cynthia said. He laughed. They watched a drone lift a crate of seedlings to a rooftop greenhouse on the demo screen. Electric motors whispered. GPS locked. Rotors and code carried the crate exactly where the graphic said it would go. Cynthia liked that. It was measurable. By the 5th week, her building had a smart lobby kiosk and a delivery locker bank that talked to the municipal AI. Packages routed without porch theft threads. HVAC faults flagged before the hum became a fight in the group chat. Elevator maintenance moved from surprise notes on the door to scheduled windows pushed to every resident's band. Cynthia synced her band with Kyle's and watched their sleep scores climb as the building systems learned their patterns. The news called it a safer Denver. Cynthia felt it in shorter clinic lines when she stopped by work on a Saturday to file a training update. Healing moved through technology on the same schedule. A medtech van parked outside the neighborhood community center 3 blocks from Cynthia's apartment. Inside, scanners, nanite packs, and outpatient implant upgrades ran on appointment slots that actually stayed on time. Cynthia volunteered a demo shift because her company partnered with the platform and because Kyle said it would look good on her quarterly review. A woman with a chronic knee injury walked out without the brace she had worn for years. A teenager's asthma patch calibrated itself to his breathing on the tablet in front of him. An older man had a wound sealed under a clear smart dressing, while the portal logged every step. Cynthia did not ask whether the relief was holy. She asked whether the outcome recorded correctly. It did. Her own body kept pace with the city's pitch. A free screening flagged elevated blood pressure and routed her to a 30-minute med-tech consult with a recommended implant patch that would report to her band. Cynthia said yes. The patch went on clean, the numbers smoothed by the next morning. "Keep living your life," the nurse on the screen said. Cynthia believed the news and believed the readout and did not see a contradiction. Money changed on a rollout schedule. First, the corner store took blockchain wallet taps beside card readers. Then the card readers went away. Cynthia enrolled at the fair's biochip station because the line moved fast and because Kyle had already done it. The chip sat under the skin of her thumb with a faint pressure like a splinter that had decided to behave. Virtual banks replaced branches in the feed announcements. Balances lived on glass. Purchases verified with a touch to a kiosk or a palm reader at the locker bank. Cynthia brought kale home from a vertical farm pop-up and watched the ledger update before she reached her floor. No one talked about credit scores. They talked about access tiers, municipal subsidy flags, and whether your health AI qualified you for produce credits. Cynthia qualified. She felt fortunate and a little proud. Sometimes she wondered who decided the tiers. The question did not frighten her. It simply appeared at odd times, usually when the pulse in her chest was already awake. Government changed on TV first, then in the lobby kiosk. The old city council still met, but the smart city dashboard made most daily decisions feel already handled. Traffic lights learned rush patterns. Power draws shifted before brownout warnings. Robot crews poured foundation sections for a creek path covered downtown, while electric drones ferried rebar and panel packs along a corridor that had been a weedy parking lot in March and was a transitand garden spine in May. Cynthia watched the footage on TV and then walked the spine on a Sunday with Kyle. From the ground, it looked even better. Beautiful glass and green canopies, charging rails, drone lanes above the pedestrian path, kiosks every block with maps, health prompts, emergency buttons, and municipal announcements. Everything you need within a 15-minute radius, the anchor said later that night. Cynthia believed that was freedom. Most days, it felt like freedom. 8 weeks in, Denver looked like a city that had been upgraded all at once. Orchards and medians grew engineered strains tuned for drought and air quality data. Rooftop modules fed restaurant supply chains tracked by municipal AI. Clinic waits stayed short because triage bots and nanite outpatient tools did what her training manuals had promised for a decade, only now the promises kept. Cynthia's manager gave her a regional slot to demo the new integrated health stack. She came home with a branded jacket, a band sync badge, and a certification path already recommended in her employer's app. Over dinner, she told Kyle she felt like she was finally on the right side of history. "You are," he said. He meant it completely. That helped. The twins' sense did not fade as the residue habits did. It sharpened. One warm evening, Cynthia stood at the kitchen window watching drone lights trace delivery paths above the corridor and felt a jolt behind her sternum. It was as if someone had stepped into the room while she was looking out. She turned. Kyle was at the table behind her, scrolling his band. The feeling did not match his breathing. It was too specific, too loved, too located to be his. She laid her palm on his wrist out of habit and told herself it was the implant patch settling in. The thread in her chest answered anyway with one pulse that felt like yes. Somewhere on an earth she could not see, another body felt the same jolt at the same instant and whispered goodnight to a presence without a name. Cynthia did not know that. She knew only that Kyle was not the whole explanation anymore. By the 3rd month, the Front Range had the look the feeds called Smart Denver. Green in layers you could walk through under canopies that also routed drones and filtered air. Creek paths lit for evening walkers, and monitored for litter by nanite bins that reported when they needed emptying. Electric craft moved above the corridors on fixed lanes, cargo and commuters crossing town without burning fuel, pilots optional, AI default. A clinic Cynthia trained 1-week flu blood panels by drone to a lab that returned results before the patient reached the parking spine. Medtech rooms sat beside locker banks, beside implant service kiosks, beside municipal health desks, with the same branding as her company's portal. Children learned vertical farm basics in school on Tuesday and drone safety on Thursday because the curriculum tracked job demand forecasts on TV. Cynthia still loved technology. She synced her band with Kyle's. She watched the news while she cooked because the news told her the city was winning, and much of what it said was true. Her employer's app offered a new certification track for smart clinic integration. She enrolled before dessert cooled. The manufacturer's hub still held 2 bands on the couch corner, 2 lights for 2 lives that fit the diagram. Sometimes the pressure behind her sternum pulsed when Kyle was not in the room and had not texted and could not explain it. Cynthia was becoming sure the feeling was real. She was not yet sure what it was. On TV, the anchor praised another city for reaching the same smart Denver milestones. Blockchain Live. Biochip adoption passed 80%. Robot crews ahead of schedule. AI-guided clinic access expanded to every registered household. Cynthia muted the set and looked out at the street grid under its canopy lights. Rain had passed an hour earlier. The pavement looked designed, not merely repaired. Everything she had wanted from authority for years was finally saying the same story her eyes could verify on the walk to work. Almost everything. Late at night, when the apartment was quiet and Kyle's band glowed steady on the nightstand, Cynthia sometimes wondered why the good feeling did not sink all the way into the bone. She told herself that was stress from the new certification and synced her band for sleep. The city hummed perfectly outside. The thread in her chest hummed too. Stubborn, specific, not Kyle, not the news, not the chip in her thumb. "Good night," she whispered to the feeling because she had no other name for it yet. Then she slept in a body. The city had upgraded on every chart that mattered. Chapter 5. Cynthia woke before her alarm to a pulse behind her sternum that arrived on a schedule she could almost count. One beat, a pause, another beat. Kyle slept on his side with his band dark on the nightstand. The city hummed under canopy lights the way it always hummed now, efficient and praised on TV. The thread in Cynthia's chest was not efficient. It was specific. It had been specific since Tuesday in March, and more honest since the fair, the third month, and every good night she had whispered to a feeling she could not name. At breakfast, she opened the municipal wellness portal and searched until she found a category she would have laughed at a year ago. Intuitive bond assessment, rated practitioners, blockchain-verified client reviews. Kyle read over her shoulder with coffee in his hand. "You want a psychic," he said. "I want an answer," Cynthia said. "The health AI says my labs are perfect. The relationship apps say you and I are aligned. This does not feel like either of those." Kyle was quiet a moment. His expression changed in a way Cynthia knew from hospital meetings, when a budget line stopped being abstract and became a patient in a room. "My mom used to send posts about the shift," he said, "before March. Sheen in the clouds, split timelines, all of it." "You said it was weather apps and noise." "I did." "Something happened in March," Cynthia said. "They call it a network transition." "I know." The feeling in my chest did not start because a network upgraded. She showed him the practitioner profile. 4 stars. Specialty listed as pre-transition pair bonds and unresolved twin field reports. Kyle raised an eyebrow. Twin field is very Denver wellness. "Will you come with me?" Cynthia asked. "If I go alone, I will talk myself out of it in the parking spine." Kyle looked at the screen again. Then he looked at her. "I will come," he said. That was not proof. It was support. For the first time that morning, Cynthia felt the thread in her chest quiet enough to let her breathe. Cheyenne walked to the community center on a morning when the resource board showed open flight rings, a soil culture pickup in her zip code, and a request for jars on the west side. The gym doors stood open the way they always did now. People moved through the space with the purposeful ease of those who knew why they had arrived. The Pleiadian woman from the first week sat at a side table with electroculture stakes and a cup of tea. She was not teaching a class. She was simply available. Cheyenne had seen her often enough to know her voice and not her name. The woman looked up before Cheyenne spoke. "You have a thread question," she said. It was not a guess. Cheyenne's ribs were already answering. "I need to know what it is," Cheyenne said. "The twin sense, the pressure, the person who is not in my apartment and never was in my memory." The woman nodded toward 2 chairs by the window. "Sit. We will not make it mystical. We will make it accurate." Cheyenne sat. Outside, a child carried a copper spiral across the parking lot like a flag. The intuitive's office sat in a converted clinic suite above a drone depot. Soft light. A water feature that recycled its own water and reported purity to the municipal dashboard. A tablet at the desk confirmed Cynthia's identity with a thumb scan and offered 3 payment tiers before the practitioner opened the door. The practitioner was a woman Cynthia's age with calm hands and a badge that chimed when Cynthia checked in. Kyle took the chair by the wall and stayed quiet. He had come because she asked. He was not pretending to understand before the room gave him something to understand. The woman asked Cynthia to describe the pressure, without naming it first. Cynthia described the stairwell turn she could not forget, the good nights, the pulses that did not match Kyle's texts or his breathing or the news cycle. She described one night when she had whispered good night while Kyle slept beside her, his band steady on the nightstand, and the pulse in her chest had answered on the next beat as if someone had whispered back. The practitioner listened without typing until Cynthia finished. "You have a twin bond," she said, "intense, pre-transition, still active across the split." Kyle leaned forward. "The network transition," he asked. "March." The practitioner spread her hands. "Call it what your feeds call it. The bond does not care about branding. Something separated. You landed on one side. Your twin landed on another. The connection was not severed." Cynthia's throat tightened. "I do not have a sister," she said. "You do not have a sister in the records you trust," the practitioner said. "You have a twin in the field you feel. Fighting the field makes it louder. Assigning it to the wrong source makes it lonely." She looked at Kyle. "Were you together before March?" "Yes," Kyle said. "Did she ever speak about a sister?" Cynthia opened her mouth to say no. The answer did not come. A name rose instead. Cheyenne. Not from a photo album, not from a lease, not from any message thread she could open. The name came from the pressure itself, sudden and exact, the way a song returns when someone hums the first 3 notes. "I know the name," Cynthia said quietly. "I do not know how I know it." The practitioner nodded. The body remembers what the records edit. Kyle said the name once softly. "Cheyenne." Cynthia closed her eyes. The thread answered. At the community center window, the Pleiadian woman said the same fact in different words. "The shift already happened," she said. "You know that here. Your sister knows you in the field. She is on the parallel Earth your people still call the lower timeline when they call it anything at all." Cheyenne swallowed. "Cynthia." The name felt like a key she had always owned. As soon as she said it, grief arrived with relief folded inside it. Not a memory, something older than memory. "She is in the smart city," the woman said. "In the story that calls March a network transition and builds over the opening." "Is she safe?" Cheyenne asked. "Safe in many ways," the woman said. "Managed in many ways. Loved in some ways. Still sovereign at the core, whether she remembers how to use it or not." Cheyenne held that because it was kinder than the simpler answer she had feared. "The bond is the exception," the woman said. "Not images, not phone calls, not messages you can use to skip her path. Feeling first. Placement in the same instant on the same geography. You have already lived that." "What do I do?" Cheyenne asked. "Stop treating it like residue. Learn what you have." The woman placed her hand over her own sternum. "You have telepathy. Activated when you crossed. Not loud. Not words for strangers. Real." Cheyenne's palms tingled. "Can she hear me?" Cheyenne asked. "Not words," the woman said. "Not images. She receives what you send as impulse. Warmth, fear, steadiness, the quality behind the thought. The twin bond already carries that across the boundary. Telepathy lets you send with clarity. It lets her answer in kind only if her channel opens. Cheyenne understood before her mind finished sorting it. Sending tone was not the same as being heard. "Can her channel open?" she asked. "Yes," the woman said, "if she becomes motivated from within. If she raises her vibration through real choice instead of only improved management. It is possible. It is unlikely while the system she trusts is feeding her every answer before she can become hungry for her own." Cheyenne looked down at her hands. The answer hurt because it was not cruel. "Do not hate her for that," the woman said. "Do not wait for her to rescue you from loneliness. Send what is true. Hold the line without forcing." Cheyenne nodded once. The knocking in her ribs had a job now. The practitioner offered Cynthia a breathing pattern and a hand placement. She also offered a package of follow-up sessions, 3 price tiers, and a portal reminder schedule. Cynthia almost bought the middle option because the middle option always felt practical. The practitioner smiled before she tapped the screen. "You do not need me every week," she said. "You need to stop arguing with the pulse. 5 minutes. Hand here. No assigning. Let it answer." In the elevator, Kyle took Cynthia's hand. "You knew her name," he said. "I knew it when she said twin," Cynthia said. "Before March, we were already in this apartment. I do not have a sister in any story I can tell about my life." "My mom's posts were ridiculous," Kyle said. "Sheen, UFOs in the clouds, black hats, split earth. I mocked them." "Something happened," Cynthia said. "The fair called it a network transition seam. The news calls it an upgrade. The intuitive calls it a split. And you had a twin." "Not in the lease," Cynthia said. "In the field." They walked to the car in the parking spine without speaking, until Kyle opened the door. "I believe you," he said, "not the blockchain stars. You, the pressure. Cheyenne." Cynthia looked at him. "Do not tell anyone at work." "No." "I mean it. Not the portal. Not your mom yet. This is ours." The word ours settled in Cynthia's chest beside the thread and made room. Kyle had always been good at systems. This was a system with no manual. He was still good at showing up. They drove home with the secret between them like a third passenger, not frightening, closer. Cynthia had not saved Cheyenne's old threads. Kyle had deleted his mother's shift forwards as clutter years ago. They believed the split had happened. They could not prove it in court or on a feed. That did not make the thread less real. That evening, Cheyenne stood at her window with garden country below. The city smelled like wet leaves and clean pavement. Small craft moved above the creek corridor in quiet lines. Somewhere beyond sight, a resource board had probably answered a need before anyone called it a shortage. "Send tone," the Pleiadian woman had said. Not argument, not rescue. Cheyenne pressed her palm to her sternum. She thought of Cynthia on a landing with a recycling bag, turning toward a stairwell, afraid and stubborn and loved. She thought of Sunday dinner, though she did not remember it as history. She remembered the shape of hurt. She remembered wanting softness from someone whose face she could not yet see. Warmth she chose, presence, the simplest truth. She sent "I'm here" the way a person sent breath to a plant she had promised to water. No words traveled, only quality, steady, patient, sister. In the smart apartment, Cynthia set her band on the charger and did the 5 minutes the practitioner had assigned. Hand on chest. No Kyle, no headline, no explanation required. The pulse met her halfway. Not Kyle, not the chip in her thumb, familiar in a way that made her eyes sting. Kyle was in the kitchen rinsing mugs. He did not ask what she was doing. He had agreed this was theirs. "I hear you," Cynthia whispered, though she did not know if hearing was the right verb. The thread answered yes on the next beat. Cheyenne felt the answer as a soft knock from inside her own body. Received, not returned as speech, not proof for anyone else, proof enough for her. The Pleiadian woman had said to hold the line without forcing. Cheyenne opened the manufacturer's app on the couch where the hub breathed blue. The second user slot still waited, empty of any name the world would recognize. She typed Cynthia in the private note field only she could see. Then she deleted it and left the slot blank on purpose. The bond did not live in the app. It lived in the body. She could send without claiming Cynthia in any ledger New Earth used. She would send again tomorrow, and the day after. Not to fix Cynthia's timeline, not to pull her across a boundary she was not ready to see, because a twin who had always known fear in another's chest should not have to pretend the channel was closed. Cynthia lay beside Kyle that night with the Smart City Perfect outside, the certification module finished on her tablet, and the thread steadier than it had ever been. She knew she had a twin. She knew the name Cheyenne the way you knew a childhood song when someone hummed the first 3 notes. She did not know telepathy was a door she could open. No one had said those words. The practitioner had spoken of fields and splits and not fighting the pulse. The wellness portal had not offered a course in raising vibration. Cynthia had not thought to ask. Kyle slept against her shoulder. His band glowed once and went dark. The thread pulsed on its own schedule, not his. She was not unhappy. She was busy. She was loved in the way her life had trained her to recognize love. The good feeling still did not sink all the way into the bone sometimes. She told herself that was the cost of caring about a city that finally worked. Then she placed her hand over her chest the way the practitioner had shown her. No assigning, no arguing, let it answer. "Good night, Cheyenne," she whispered. Somewhere on an earth she could not prove, another body whispered good night back in the same instant without hearing the syllables. The connection held, not words, not reunion. A thread, consistent at last, waiting for a motivation Cynthia did not have yet and Cheyenne had learned to carry without breaking. Denver glowed under 2 skies, Garden Country lights in one timeline, Canopy Blue in another, same block, same creek corridor, same women, sorted by a shift they had argued about at a dinner table lifetimes ago and were only now, on each side, beginning to understand.
If you want more read-aloud journeys in this frequency, subscribe to GFL HFY and ring the bell. New tales land here first. Galactic Federation of Light lore, star family stories, Pleiadian worlds, and quiet HFY after the shift. Integration, not combat. If this one resonated, a like helps listeners who already speak this language find the channel and tells me to keep bringing the next chapter. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next story.